Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I am Hashni Pathirana. First up is a look at your headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
The Lanka T10 Super League 2024 from the 11th to the 19th of December.
Take steps to strengthen the financial system. President instructs the Ministry of Finance. The United Petroleum ship was turned away due to an internal matter of the company. There is no shortage of fuel in the country. An assurance from the chairman of the Petroleum Corporation. Colombo Stock Exchange records all-time high. SJB nominates National List MPs. Sujiva nominated from the SJB. 3 seats allocated for affiliated parties. 2 out of the 7 people in Jaffna who died of fever had contracted leptospirosis. 440 metric tons of imported rice reaches the island. Sri Lankan diplomat Himali Arunatilaka fined $117,000 for exploiting domestic worker by the Australian Federal Court.
President Kumara Dissanayake today instructed officials from the Ministry of Finance to discuss enhancing financial efficiency and stability. The President met with ministry officials at the President's office.
President Kumara Dissanayake directed that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, as an independent institution, must take all necessary measures to address the current challenges. He assured that the government will provide the necessary support and resources to aid these efforts. According to the President's media division, the President also called for the development of a strong framework to streamline banking and financial operations across the country. The President stressed the need for the central bank to enforce prudent macroeconomic policies aimed at ensuring long-term financial stability and reinforcing the resilience of Sri Lanka's financial system. The President expressed hope for sustainable growth in asset quality, better risk management, and overall progress in the country's financial system.
Chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Janaka Rajakaruna, today revealed that none of the 3 companies approved by the previous government to enter Sri Lanka's local fuel market had brought in any investment into the country. The chairman said that they have only purchased fuel.
Meanwhile, reports have come in of an incident where a ship of the United Petroleum Company that brought fuel into Sri Lanka had been turned away. The chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation assured that turning away of this ship will in no way cause a shortage of fuel in the country.
Reports were published on newspapers that a ship named MT Hafnia Taurus that was carrying 30,000 metric tons of fuel had been turned away on the 6th of December. The ship had reached the Colombo port on the 2nd of December. Speaking at a media briefing held at the Department of Government Information today, Chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Janaka Rajakaruna, said that the United Petroleum Company's fuel ship was turned back due to an internal issue of the company. He added that the ship was carrying 15,000 metric tons of octane 92 fuel and 15,000 metric tons of diesel.
ඉතින් මේ තෙල් නැව ඇවිල්ලා
This ship had reached Sri Lanka, and because of an internal issue of the company, the fuel had not been unloaded and the ship was turned away. The Petroleum Corporation is in possession of sufficient stocks of fuel. Also, we have placed orders for fuel until the month of April next year. Therefore, we have the capacity to face any situation. There is absolutely no need to have any fear regarding a fuel shortage.
We informed
them that if there is a shortage, it will damage the good name of the corporation. We also proposed to them that we can provide the fuel required to their suppliers and customers. I propose that there is no need for us to consider the internal issues of a private company as a national issue.
The former government allowed for 3 private companies to enter the local fuel market to ensure that the general public will never have to face issues similar to those that they have faced during the economic crisis. The private companies Sinopec, United Petroleum and RM Parks had then entered the local fuel market. It was agreed that each company will be given 150 fuel stations operated by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, and agreements were also reached to open up new fuel stations.
කවුද ලංකාවේ පෙට්‍රෝලියම් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එක නියාමනය කරන්නේ? දැන් මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ දැන් මේ ප්‍රධාන සමාගම් මේ වෙනකොට ඉන්නවනේ 4ක් දැන් ලංකාවේ තෙල් සපයන්. දැන් අද කියයි ඔය සමාගම අපිට ගේන්න බෑ කියලා. හෙට තව සමාගමක් කියයි. අනිද්දා තව සමාගමක් කියයි. එතකොට කොහොමද කොතනින්ද මේක කන්ට්‍රෝල් කරන්නේ?
දැනට නියාමනය කරන්නේ ඇමතිවරයා. ඒ කියන්නේ අමාත්‍යාංශය තමයි නියාමනය කරන්න තියෙන්නේ.
For the moment, it is regulated by the ministry. It is the ministry that has to regulate. According to our manifesto, our plan is to hand this over to the Public Utilities Commission. It is to be regulated through that institution. There are some legal requirements that have to be fulfilled for this to be done, and they are being formulated. With regard to the other question that you asked, there is no point in blaming us because these companies had come into Sri Lanka due to several decisions that were taken in the recent past. These companies were brought in due to the dollar crisis. If there is no issue with the dollar reserves, these companies are not required. It was when the dollar crisis was ending that these companies were given permits. If that was the case, these permits should have not been issued. But these permits have been issued. The issue is that these companies have not made any investments. Purchasing fuel is the only investment they make. We cannot call them competitors because their price is higher than the price of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. They have submitted a claim. We can move forward and manage the situation without any issue. No matter how these companies act, they will now have 300 fuel stations. We cannot amend these agreements as the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Even the government has accepted the fact that there are certain parts of these agreements that need to be amended. This was presented even during the meeting held with the IMF. Those officials too agreed that there are certain terms that should be amended. The Secretary to the Ministry is taking the relevant action to address this.
ඒකින්ද මම හිතන්නේ මේ වෙනකොට අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්වරයා ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරගෙන යනවා.
During a media briefing today at the Department of Government Information, the issue of why it is not possible to reduce electricity bills was addressed.
The electricity tariff consists of 3 main components: the cost of generation, the cost of transmission, and the cost of distribution. When considering these 3 components along with the finance costs associated with our existing debts, we estimate that for the first 6 months of the coming year, we will incur a total of 268 billion rupees. The cost structure will remain in place for the next 6 months as well. Based on projected energy demand, we expected to generate an income of approximately 229 billion rupees. As a result, there will be a shortfall of 39 billion rupees. Currently, 333 billion rupees remain unused, but the Ceylon Electricity Board still has outstanding payments to make to various parties. By the end of this year, however, we anticipate an additional profit or surplus income of around 41 billion rupees. As I mentioned earlier, this surplus will help cover the excess cost of 39 billion rupees for the first 6 months. Therefore, by mid-2025, we will be able to continue without making any changes to electricity tariffs. If we maintain this tariff structure, we can manage the excess costs in the coming year, which will amount to approximately 39 billion rupees without increasing or decreasing electricity tariffs.
ඉදකේ සසඳීමක් කරා තමයි විදුලි ගාස්තුව වැඩි කරන්නේ නැතුව අඩු කරන්නේ නැතුව පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ.
ඇයි මේ තරම් ජලය තියෙද්දිත් සමහර වෙලාවට
Many people have raised questions in recent weeks about why, despite the availability of significant water resources, fuel-powered plants are still being used. As you may have noticed, the data is publicly available, and it shows that these fuel plants are used primarily at night rather than during the day. During the day, solar energy from rooftop panels generate a significant amount of electricity, which reduces the need for fossil fuel-based plants. The use of fuel power plants during the day has decreased, and they are now mostly in operation at night. Many are asking what steps are being taken to reduce electricity costs. The first step, as is widely known, is that successive governments have made efforts to introduce natural gas into the country. The project to import natural gas is expected to take about 3 years to implement. Once this is in place, we will be able to reduce fuel costs by as much as 50%.
වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයකින් අඩු කරන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා ස්වභාවික වායු අපිට ලැබුණම.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා වර්තමාන ජනාධිපතිවරණයට පෙර විපක්ෂයේ සිටියේදී එතුමා ප්‍රකාශ කළා ඒ ආකාරයේ විදුලි බිල අඩු කිරීමක් කරන්න අපහසු දෙතුමක් වෙන ඔබ දිනකින් තුනෙන් එකකින් විදුලි බිල අඩු කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඔබතුමාගේ පිළිතුර මොකක්ද ඒකට?
එතුමා කිව්වා ටික කාලයකින් කියලා. ඉතින් මේ අප කියපු ව්‍යාපෘතිත් ඒ වගේම මිලදී ගැනීම ක්‍රමවේදත් ටිකින් ටික ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙද්දී මේ වියදම අඩු වෙන්න ඕනේ.
ඉතින් එතකොට මේ කතාවයි මේක අතර පරස්පරයක් තියෙනව නේද?
The initial plan was to reduce costs by 30% at the beginning of this year. However, during the election period, two proposals were presented which led to a reduction of approximately 22%. There is no mistake in what the president said. It is certainly possible to reduce costs. However, we cannot sustainably lower electricity bills without constructing low-cost power plants. This process occurs gradually over the next 5 years as we will add new plants each year.
පෞගේ පැය 24 ඇතුළත මම හිතන්නේ දෙවෙනියටම සමාජ දහලවල ට්‍රෙන්ඩින් වෙලා තියෙන පෝස්ට් එකක් තමයි මම කියවන්නම් මම ඒක කෝට් කරන්නම් ජලාශ වාන්දාද්දී මණ්ඩලයේ අලුත් සභාපතිගේ වයිෆ්ගේ බලාගාරයෙන් විදුලිය මිලට අරන් බලන්නේ දෙන්නගේ ආදරේ ඔබතුමාට හරියටම ඩිනයි කරන්න පුළුවන්ද ඔබතුමාවත් ඔබතුමාගේ කියන්නේ ෆැමිලි එකේවත් කියන්නේ conflict of interest එකක් කිසිම දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන්
අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම 100%ක්ම කිසිම conflict of interest එකක් නැහැ අඩුම තරමේ වහලේ උඩ සූර්ය කෝෂ කට්ටලයක්වත් නැහැ.
Sri Lanka Customs says that private importers have brought down 440 metric tons of nadu rice into Sri Lanka from India.
අද උදෑසන වෙන විට ශ්‍රී ලංකා රේගුවට ආනයන බහලුම් 17ක් නිදහස් කිරීම.
As of this morning, 17 containers have been brought down to Sri Lanka, with most of these containers already cleared for release. These containers hold approximately 440 metric tons of rice, including 130 metric tons of raw rice and 300 metric tons of boiled rice, all imported from India. Sri Lanka Customs has expedited the release of these containers, ensuring minimal delays after importers pay the required duties and the cargo is inspected by food controllers and plant quarantine officers.
ධාරින් විසින් පරීක්ෂා කිරීමෙන් පසුව ආනයනකරුවන් වෙත නිදහස් කිරීම සඳහා අපි කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the National Consumer Front suggests that removing tariffs on rice imported from India could allow this rice to be sold to consumers at a price lower than the current market rate.
මේ ඉන්දියානු කියන හාල් වලට ලංකාවේ ගහන රුපියල් 60ක 65ක බද්දා. ඒ හාල් බද්ද අයින් කරොත් ඔය කියන හාල් දෙන්න පුළුවන් රුපියල් 180කට. ඒක සාහනයනේ පාරිභෝගිකයට.
Farmers also raised concerns over the price of rice.
What happened to the discussion regarding rice prices? While some increased their prices by 10 to 15 rupees, the price offered to village farmers dropped by 15 rupees the following day. Paddy, which was 145 rupees yesterday, has dropped to 130 rupees. We are not suggesting that either party should gain excessive profits. However, to safeguard farmers, a guaranteed price must be established by adding a fair margin to the production cost and revising it every 6 months. Farmers make ends meet for those 6 months by engaging in farming. Therefore, the price must be set in a manner that protects both the farmer and the consumer.
What is the situation on the availability of rice in the market? This is the current situation in several areas outside Colombo.
ප්‍රමාණවත් විදියට නම් හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපේ මෝල් වලුත් කියන්නේ මේ උමනාතන වී නැහැ කියලා. අපි මේ 225ට ගත්ත සුදු හාල් දැන් 220ට විකුණනවා. ඊට නීතියට එරෙහිව යන්න බැරි හින්දා
හාල් පොඩි හිගයක් තියෙනවා. මිලත් එක්ක ගැටලුව තියෙන කිසිම ආයතනයකින් හා කිසිම මූලකින් මේ මිලට අපිට තාම සහල් සප්ලයි කරන්න විකිණීම සඳහා. ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආලා නැල්ලොත් තියෙන ලක්ෂ වැඩක් අපි කන්න ඕන.
අපිට තොග මිල ගද්දිනුත් 250ක් විතර වැටෙනවා. හාල් මේ කිලෝ එකක මිල. දැන් ඉතින් අපිට හාල් ගෙනත් විකුණ ගන්නම බැරි තත්වයක් තියෙන්නේ. අපිට ඉතින් ගමේ මිනිස්සුන්ට ගෙනල්ලා ඒ ගණන් වලට විකුණන්න බෑ. 255ට 60ට විකුණන්න බෑනේ ගෙනල්ලා හාල් කිලෝ එක.
හාල් තියෙන්නේ කීරි සම්බ විතරයි. නාඩු කැකලු සම්බ මොකුත් නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒවගේ මිල වැඩි තියෙවුවා ගෙනල්ලා විකුණන්න බෑ. දැන් මේක විතරයි 260ට දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ හින්දා ඒක 255 දාලා තියෙනවා 260ට විකුණනවා. රජයේ පාලන මිල 230යිනේ දාලා තියෙන්නේ. 25යි තොග මිල දාලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අපිට ගිහිල්ලා ගෙනල්ලා වැඩකුත් නැහැ. නිකන් නඩුවක් දාගන්නට වැඩිය හොඳයි ගේන්නේ.
Meanwhile, inspections of rice mills were conducted in several areas today to inspect and identify traders selling rice at inflated prices.
The monitoring and supervision of rice mills are ongoing with officials in our district. Yesterday, 50 businessmen and today 70 businessmen were produced in court for selling rice at inflated prices and displaying incorrect prices. Therefore, I kindly urge the business community to supply the required quantity of rice at the correct price to the public during this time.
What is the next step? This is what the Minister of Agriculture had to say.
Rice is currently being imported into the country and the shortage is expected to be resolved soon. When we assumed office, the Paddy Marketing Board had no paddy stocks available. Additionally, there are challenges with paddy storage as the Paddy Marketing Board currently lacks sufficient space, leaving the provision of storage facilities in the hands of private mill owners. We anticipate that small and medium scale mill owners will have the capability to manage storage. Therefore, we encourage contacting them to procure stocks, dry them and redistribute them. Moving forward, we are strengthening the Paddy Marketing Board to safeguard both consumers and farmers, ensuring that a similar situation does not arise in the future.
Russia today handed over 55,000 metric tons of MOP fertilizer to the Sri Lankan government through the UN World Food Programme. The event was held at the Colombo port.
The consignment of MOP fertilizer coordinated under the World Food Programme's humanitarian efforts is aimed at supporting Sri Lanka's agricultural sector. The event was attended by Minister K.D. Lalkantha, Russian Ambassador to Sri Lanka Levan Zagarian and Representative and Country Director at UN World Food Programme Abdul Rahim Siddiqui among other officials.
2024 මහකන්නේ වීවගා කටයුතු ආරම්භ වී ඇති බැවින් මෙම පොහොරතොගේ භාවිතා කරමින් දැනට පොහොර ලබා දීමට සකස් කර ඇති ප්‍රමුඛතා ලැයිස්තුවට අනුව ස්ටේට් ෆර්ටිලයිසර් සමාගම මගින් ගොවි ජන සේවා මධ්‍යස්ථාන වෙතටම කඩිනමින් ප්‍රහාණය කර දීමට අවශ්‍ය සැලසුම් සකසා අවසන් කර ඇත.
We were waiting for these fertilizers for 2 years and a half. Unfortunately, it was blocked in Latvia, one of the European Union countries, because of the illegal sanctions against the Russian Federation. And finally, the fertilizers have reached Colombo. That's why I would like to express my gratitude to all our friends and partners, including the United Nations resident coordinator. The donation is completely free of charge. It comes without any conditions and aims to ensure a stable food supply and further the development of this wonderful nation. Just hopefully the fruits of these joint efforts will soon be seen first in the fields and then on the plates and tables of many people of Sri Lanka, friendly people of Sri Lanka.
At the request of the United Nations Secretary General and through the Office of the United Nations Trade and Development, WFP undertook the responsibility of ensuring the delivery of this shipment. This 55,000 tons of muriate of potash will greatly benefit Sri Lanka's rural farmers and support their agricultural livelihoods. We are confident that the Ministry of Agriculture will make full use of this donation to boost agricultural production.
Approximately 30,000 metric tons of the fertilizer will be distributed free of charge to farmers in areas where paddy cultivation has already begun, based on the priority list provided by the Department of Agriculture. The remaining stock will be allocated for coconut cultivation.
Canada has reaffirmed their commitment to supporting Sri Lanka's anti-corruption efforts.
High Commissioner for Canada in Sri Lanka, Eric Walsh, met with the Secretary to the President, Dr. Nandika Sanath Kumanaika, today. High Commissioner Eric Walsh expressed readiness to provide technical and strategic support to combat corruption in Sri Lanka. The two countries also discussed sharing Canada's expertise in tackling these issues to assist Sri Lanka in its reforms efforts. High Commissioner Eric Walsh emphasized that Sri Lanka's economic challenges have been largely driven by its political culture and acknowledged the current government's attempts to reform this culture. He noted that these efforts deserve international recognition.
Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung reiterated the United States' support for the new government's anti-corruption efforts. U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung yesterday called on the chief prelate of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Tibatuave Sri Sumangala Thero.
Well, we work with every Sri Lankan government. We will do our best to work with everybody. But it's true, yesterday we designated 2 corrupt officials. We do this every year around the world. We take the most extreme corruption cases and then we ban them from entering the United States. So this was in the works already before this government was coming into place. And we will continue to help find tools and ways to help the new government address corruption. But the president did win with a very large mandate.
Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka emphasized the positive impact of the resumed Japanese-funded projects on Sri Lanka's tourism sector.
Because of some economic crisis 2 years ago, many Japanese government-funded projects had to be suspended. But we have already announced this year, several months ago, we will resume all the important economic projects in Sri Lanka. 11 projects, and among them there is a very good project related to the tourism sector. Expansion of terminal at Bandaranaike International Airport, which is very important. We have already resumed the process, bidding. So in, I hope, 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a new expanded terminal at Bandaranaike International Airport to accommodate more tourists from overseas. Currently, the capacity of accommodating tourists, passengers at the airport is 6 million. But it is already at the stretch because as the economy recovers in Sri Lanka, there are many tourists coming to Sri Lanka already now. But by the completion of this Japan-funded project, the airport can accommodate more than twice the number of current tourists. That is going to be 15 million tourists annually, passengers annually.
He expressed these views at the certificate awarding ceremony organized by the Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry of Sri Lanka and National Apprentice and Industrial Training Authority.
Australia today gifted a former Royal Australian Air Force Beechcraft King Air 350 to the Sri Lanka Air Force.
The Australian Border Force gifted a former Royal Australian Air Force Beechcraft King Air 350 to the Sri Lanka Air Force at an event in Colombo today. The aircraft, officially handed over in late October, will enhance Sri Lanka's aerial surveillance capabilities, particularly in addressing transnational crimes such as people smuggling.
This is a mission. Collaborative efforts of partnership underscores the mutual responsibility to safeguard the vital maritime corridor, which plays such an important role in global trade, security, and also prosperity of the world. Together, we are working tirelessly to enhance the standards of maritime security through maritime domain awareness, fortify defense capabilities, and ensure the waters of Indian Ocean region remains secure and navigable for generations to come. This latest edition of Beech King Air 350 aircraft to the Sri Lanka Air Force Number 3 Maritime Squadron, which is dedicated for maritime air operations, will bolster our surveillance, reconnaissance and patrolling for the protection of our seas.
As a former Royal Australian Air Force maritime patrol craft, the Beechcraft King Air 350 will significantly enhance Sri Lanka's maritime surveillance capability by offering a longer line of sight and a wider area of surveillance. Complementary to this gifting will be a package that is to be formalised, enabling a 12-month support package, thereby reinforcing the capability in its core role moving forward. I'd like to take the time to reinforce to the Sri Lankan communities the joined-up approach that both the Australian Government and the Sri Lankan Government takes to tackling transnational crime, including dismantling criminal people smuggling syndicates. As can be observed today, we are both committed to resolve this together. We will stop anyone involved in illegal activities. And as both Australia and Sri Lanka have proven over the past couple of years, collectively we are stronger together.
I know that the Sri Lanka Air Force will not only take very good care of the King Air 350, but also put it to very good use as the aircraft enhances Sri Lanka's maritime domain awareness and strengthens Sri Lanka's capability to combat transnational crimes, including people smuggling. This moment is one we have been building towards for a long time, more than a year, and it's the result of a huge amount of hard work that has been undertaken both in Australia and in Sri Lanka. In 2025, we will continue this support and cooperation through the provision of hydrographic equipment to Sri Lankan Navy, which will uplift Sri Lanka's sovereign capability to map its ocean floor, and we will continue to provide training and education opportunities, including an Indian Ocean maritime security program which will be held at the Australian National University in Canberra.
The aircraft is more than a piece of equipment. It is a strategic instrument of national interest. Your expertise and commitment will be cornerstones of transforming this extremely valuable asset into powerful capability for our country. We wish this aircraft serve as a beacon of hope, a guardian of peace, and a symbol of Sri Lanka's commitment to regional security and international cooperation.
The Beechcraft King Air 350 will also provide training opportunities for Sri Lanka Air Force personnel.
News First with the people.
Sri Lankan diplomat Himali Arunatilaka has been fined more than $100,000 in the Federal Court of Australia.
Former Sri Lankan Deputy High Commissioner in Australia Himali Arunatilaka has been fined $117,028.80 after the federal court found her guilty of mistreating her domestic worker Priyanka Dhanaratna. Dhanaratna, Sri Lankan national, worked for Arunatilaka in her Canberra home from 2016 to 2018, often more than 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Despite this schedule, Dhanaratna was paid only $11,212.70 during the entire employment period, far below the legal minimum wage. The court had previously ruled that Arunatilaka violated multiple provisions of the Fair Work Act 2009, including failing to provide pay slips, underpaying wages and forcing Dhanaratna to work excessive hours. Arunatilaka was ordered to pay the fine within 60 days. This penalty follows a large compensation payment of $374,151.90 to Dhanaratna awarded in the previous ruling for unpaid wages and entitlements. Himali Arunatilaka now serves as the permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations in Geneva.
The Samaki Jana Balawegya announced its national list MPs today. The announcement came against the backdrop of an enjoining order issued by the Colombo District Court following a legal challenge from the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress.
The Samaki Jana Balawegya has nominated 4 individuals for the national list: Sujiva Sena Singha, Mano Ganesan, Nizam Karyappar and Muttu Mohammed. The party secured a total of 5 national list seats. General Secretary of the SJB, Ranjit Mandubandara, had previously been nominated for a national list seat as well. Meanwhile, Colombo Additional District Judge Chamari Veerasurya issued an enjoining order preventing the Samaki Jana Balawegya from submitting its national list MP nominations without including the name of Nizam Karyappar of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress. This order followed a petition filed by leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Rauf Hakim. When the petition was taken up before the Colombo Additional District Judge and President's Counsel Ikram Mohammed made submissions in court. After considering the submissions made, the Additional District Judge issued an enjoining order against the General Secretary of the Samaki Jana Balawegaya. General Secretary of the Samaki Jana Balawegaya, Ranjit Madduma Bandara, had this to say.
සුදුසුම පත් වෙලා ඉන්නවද?
ඔය ඉතින් අපේ මිත්‍ර පක්ෂත් එක්ක අසං කරපු ගිවිසුම් අනුව කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා.
දැන් උසාවි යනකම් ඕකට ඉන්න උනාද?
නෑ උසාවි යන්න ඉස්සලා තීන්දුව අරන් තිබ්බේ. අපි ලියුම යවලා තියෙනවා.
උසාවි ගියේ ඉතින් ඔක කිව්වනේ.
හරි ඔබතුමාට ඕන මේක පත් කරන්නද නැතුව ඉන්නද?
ඔබතුමා මේ රවුෆකින් මාත්‍යට ඔක කිව්වනම් ඔය ප්‍රශ්නේ නෑ නේද?
වැඩේ ලේසි වුණා.
තව ඉල්ලපු කට්ටිය තරහ වෙන කට්ටිය කවුද?
නෑ එහෙම කවුරුත් තරහ වෙන්න හේතුවක් නෑනේ.
දැන් හිරුනිකා මැදිරියට තම්බේ කියලා අපි හිතුවනේ.
ඔව් සුදුසු එක්කනේ.
ඇයිද සුදුසුරන් දෙන්න තිබ්බනේ.
ඉතින් කොහොමද හතරයිනේ තියෙන්නේ?
In an extraordinary Gazette notification issued by the National Election Commission, Faiza Mustafa has been appointed as the Nationalist Member of Parliament for the New Democratic Front. The New Democratic Front, contesting under the symbol of a gas cylinder, secured 3 parliamentary seats in the recent parliamentary elections. The New Democratic Front also secured 2 nationalist seats. Ravi Karnanayaka was already sworn in as a Member of Parliament earlier.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna said that they will be moving a no-confidence motion against the current Speaker. This was confirmed during a media briefing held in Colombo.
පක්ෂ හැටියට අපි තීන්දුවක් ගත්තා කතානායකවරයාට එරෙහිව විශ්වාස භංග යෝජනාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම සඳහා.
As a party, we have decided to take the necessary steps to move a no-confidence motion against the Speaker. Initially, the Parliament website claimed that the Speaker held a doctorate and other academic qualifications, but this information has since been removed. While we acknowledge that a doctorate is not a requirement to become Speaker, the issue at hand runs deeper. According to the Constitution, the Speaker holds the responsibility for upholding the Constitution. If someone in such a position has misled the public regarding their academic qualifications and is proven guilty of dishonesty, they must respect the Constitution and the administration by stepping down from their role. Unfortunately, we have yet to see such an action.
The Supreme Court today ruled that the detention of former Western Province Governor Azad Saleh in 2021 under the Prevention of Terrorism Act was unlawful. The court also ordered the respondents to pay a sum of 75,000 rupees to the petitioner. Among the respondents named in the petition are former Minister of Public Security Sarath Virasekara, the Director of the Criminal Investigation Department and several other officials. Now in more local news, 2 of the 7 people who recently died from a fever in the northern province had contracted leptospirosis. This was confirmed through tests conducted by the Medical Research Institute in Buralla.
A total of 44 patients who have contracted fever are currently receiving treatment at several hospitals in the Jaffna district. 32 out of the patients are being treated at the Point Pedro Base Hospital and the Jaffna Teaching Hospital. A team, including Dr. Prabha Bekhun from the Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health, arrived at the Jaffna Teaching Hospital to carry out investigations today. The team engaged in a discussion with the Director of the Jaffna Teaching Hospital, Dr. Thangamuthu Satyamurthy.
Following the recent adverse weather, many patients were admitted to the hospital with fever. A significant number of patients from Vadamarachi were admitted to the Point Pedro Base Hospital and some were later transferred to our hospital. Blood tests on one of these patients confirmed that they had contracted rat fever, also known as leptospirosis.
Jaffna Regional Health Services Director and Parliamentarian Dr. S. Sri Bhavananda Raja visited the Point Pedro Hospital today.
We have taken the necessary steps to establish a new unit and staff. We have decided to provide all necessary treatments for the patients here, and only if required we will transfer them to the Jaffna Teaching Hospital.
Over the past few weeks, 7 people have died from the fever, most of whom were young males.
தற்போது பரவி வரும் ஒரு விதமான காய்ச்சல் காரணமாக
6 of the deaths were reported from the Jaffna district and 1 was reported in Mullaitivu. Samples from these patients were sent to the Colombo Medical Research Institute and we've received the results for 2 of them, confirming that they had contracted rat fever or leptospirosis. As a result, we are now treating the fever as leptospirosis and have initiated the necessary treatment and prevention measures. To address this, we are preparing to distribute antibiotics to farmers, fishermen and sanitation workers who are at high risk of contracting leptospirosis. The required medications have been provided by the Ministry of Health Medical Supply Division and we expect to receive them by tomorrow morning.
அதன் மூலம் இந்த இருவருக்கும் லெப்டோஸ்பைரோசிஸ் என்று சொல்லப்படுகின்ற
The Taliban's refugee minister was killed in a suicide bombing carried out by ISIS in the Afghan capital, Kabul.
Taliban refugee minister Khalil Haqqani has been killed in a suicide bombing inside his ministry in Kabul, the movement's most high-profile casualty since it returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. According to the Interior Ministry sources, 6 others died in the blast as Haqqani was leaving his office. Khalil Haqqani was a top member of a powerful faction in the Taliban called the Haqqani Network and was designated a global terrorist by the US. The Islamic State group later claimed responsibility for the attack. A Taliban spokesperson confirmed that Haqqani was killed by IS. In 2011, the United States classified Khalil Haqqani as a specially designated global terrorist, offering a reward of up to $5 million for information related to him. He is also on the United Nations Security Council's 1988 sanctions list.
The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded an all-time high today.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
The all-share price index, or the ASPI, of the Colombo Stock Exchange reached an all-time high, surpassing 14,000 points for the first time in Sri Lanka's history. According to the CSE, the ASPI rose by 150.72 points, closing at 14,035.81. The S&P SL20 index also saw gains, closing at 4,186.46 points. The Colombo Stock Exchange recorded a turnover of 7.3 billion rupees by the close of trading.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
A trusted place for...
No need to ask, Jesus.
Legends 966. Colombo's greatest hits.
The Lanka T10 Super League is hitting the pitch for the first time in Sri Lanka. 6 fierce teams, 1 trophy. Redefining the game on home soil. From the 11th to the 19th of December at the Pallekele International Cricket Stadium. Chase the pace of high-speed T10 cricket.
An exhibition to showcase the innovative furniture designs from Jeffrey Bawa's practice will open to the public tomorrow.
Design in the Moment, an exhibition curated by Aparna Rao and Channa Daswata, explores the innovative furniture designs from Jeffrey Bawa's practice. In addition to his iconic architecture, Bawa and his associates collaborated with local craftspeople to create unique furniture pieces inspired by Scandinavian styles and global trends. The exhibition features re-editions, prototypes and material samples from Bawa's collection, offering insights into their historical and cultural significance. The exhibition will be open to public from the 13th of December to the 31st of May 2025 at the Bawa Space in Colombo. A special Christmas-themed food festival by the Sofia Colombo City Hotel was held on Tuesday.
The Christmas-themed food festival titled Christmas Ceylon was organized by the Sofia Colombo City Hotel on Tuesday. The event featured a variety of food items and musical performances.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.